How you doing, YouTube? Matt Massa Beer Reviews, back with a little bit of Pariah up in this piece in the form of that Gourmet shit. Yeah, I know it's C-H-I-T, but yeah, love me a little bit of Pulp Fiction reference whenever I get them anywhere. This is a 8% alcohol by volume India Pale Ale brewed with coffee. They do story time in their beer, so let's dive into that. It says, what you're holding in is an example of what happens when cabin fever and conflicting topics of research overlap. This is an honest-to-goodness Pariah IPA. It just so happens to attain additional complexity from the use of primo Ethiopian coffee beans, introduced cold brew style post-fermentation. Very important there. We get complex nutty notes of citrus, apricot, cocoa, and bubblegum. This beer is unapologetically loaded with mouth-enveloping flavor, yet not taxing on the palate. We hope you guys enjoy this on a crisp autumn evening as much as we do. So it's hop, citra, cascade, amarillo, malts, pale, oats, shit, and wheat. Let's see. 8%. Yeah. Drink 90 days date code. This be a week old. Not even. 6 days old. Why? Because it comes courtesy of Pariah. They send beers to a lot of different beer tubers. So, okay. My coffee IPAs, I always expect them to skew a little bit different color, but we're dealing with cold brew here. So what are we expecting? We're expecting a big old hazy IPA by the look. Put that up there so you guys can see. Citra, Cascade, and Amarillo. So we're talking about, fruity, citrus kind of stuff going on with a little bit of piney bitterness, a little bit of herbalness in there in combination with the way that coffee plays off. So I'm kind of curious to see how this comes off. This is a play off Pulp Fiction, when Jules and the other guy go in after they shoot Marvin's head off, and they go into Jimmy's house and asked for coffee, and he said this is some real gourmet shit. So I dig it. Love me Pulp Fiction. Anyway, that looks like a hazy, a big turbid hazy, almost a triple IPA hazy. I assume that has to do with maybe a little bit of that coffee kind of adding a little bit of deep coloration to it, because in general Pariah doesn't really get too crazy with the darker versions of their beers, so I assume that's that. But she looks like a big old hazy, half a pinky finger, tight compact head, a little bit of lacing, that rich orange core. Yeah, curious about this nose. So I definitely get a coffee component here. It's not huge. It's probably, the beer is slightly bigger than when the coffee comes off, but the coffee's such a stark difference when it comes to these kind of big old hazy IPAs. It's not like a familiar nose you typically get, so it kind of jumps out at you. Yeah, I mean, there's pithy orange, there's pithy grapefruit, there's like a little bit of sweet and kind of kiwi vibe in there, but then you get that kind of, those kind of Amarillo, kind of West Coasty kind of vibes from the Cascade that just gives you this soft little herbal note, and it's very herbal. It's almost like mixing a juicy hazy with tea and then coffee. That's kind of the way that kind of herbal portion of the show, the hops going to come off. And that coffee comes off. It's weird because cold brew coffee is typically a New England style hazy IPA, and that they're trying to drop out as much bitterness as they possibly can. That's why they cold brew it. You don't just get nearly as big of a bitterness pop off a cold brew coffee. So it's like you get that sweetened coffee in the beer itself, but then you get that bittering from the hop. So it's almost like you stripped out the bittering from the coffee, then put the coffee that doesn't have bittering in the beer that has bittering. So it's like you took it out to put it back in kind of thing. I understand that the coffee bittering is going to be a much different thing, be a little bit more acidic, be a little bit more kind of harsh kind of bittering than what you're going to get off a hop. But just from a nose standpoint, it's an interesting play. I have no idea if I'm going to love or hate this beer based off of the look, based off of the nose. But it's interesting, an interesting beer. Some of my favorite beer, to be perfectly honest with you. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I'm just going to drink it. Cheers. I don't know. I'm still undecided. So, For first thing out the chute, bonkers mouthfeel. That soft cream mouthfeel that Pariah seems to get better and better at with each hazy that they make. You do get this kind of rich citrus leaning hazy at the core of this beer. It really is a New England style hazy, citrus forward, that galaxy really showing through kind of beer. But it's at odds. And that's probably my biggest takeaway from this beer, is that when you do the kind of melange of these kind of ingredients, you want them all to work together, not to fight each other. And I feel like this beer is just kind of fighting itself. And I feel like the galaxy hop and the way the beer is made, from the malt to brewer sugar, whatever else is in here, on one end, and you have those other hops, that Amarillo, a Cascade, and a coffee on the other end, and they're just kind of butting heads a little bit. They're just kind of butting heads because everything's there, but it just doesn't. It's not symbiotic. It's not in flow with each other, and it kind of piques my interest. But at the same time, I don't think it makes for a great beer. It makes for interesting beer. I keep wanting to say pina colada now. Did they write this? This weird pina colada thing. It's probably a citrus and a bubblegum thing they're talking about. That's probably my pina colada. But it's so weird that you get that coffee off there in that cold brew sense and have that bittering. I know that the bittering's not coming from the coffee, but you know it's coming from hops, but unable to discern it. Now, this would probably be my best analogy on how this beer kind of plays. Okay. So imagine you have a beer like this, sans the coffee. So you got that Citra doing its thing, or making this kind of nice, rich kind of. I think I said Galaxy earlier. I meant Citra, by the way. It's giving you this nice kind of fruity kind of component to the beer, but then you add those bittering hops in it to kind of make it a non-New England style IPA. So it has a little bit of bittering on it. It has a little bit of dankiness going on inside of that kind of citrus, because it is a West Coast IPA and they can't help themselves. But I like them for that. I love them for that. Imagine you have that beer. Your buddy has that beer. Let's make that conversation. Makes it a little bit funner. And we're doing morning beers. What is it? It's a Tuesday. We're going to do morning beers on a Tuesday because fuck it, it's Tuesday. And, but your buddy comes over and he's already morning beering it, and you're finishing your coffee. And he's like, dude, try this. It's really good. And you're like, okay. And you dump out your coffee. You're like, fuck it. Don't rinse. Just pour it in there. So the coffee isn't like the number one thing in this beer. It's like a residual note floating on the edges. Like an unwashed coffee mug that was filled with a West Coast interpretation of an East Coast kind of IPA. I'm not meaning that in like kind of like it's a dirty glass, tastes like a dirty glass and it sucks. It's just, it tastes like it doesn't belong. And I'm not saying that because I don't think coffee belongs in these beers. I've had really well done coffee IPAs. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the way this comes off, it's just a little bit disconnected for me. Interesting beer though. I'll give it that. Interesting beer. Every sip I take, it kind of grows on me, but I don't think it's a great beer. At least for me. And that's what we talk about here, what I like, because it's my party. Anyway, let's just dial this up and say what's what. Is this one of the better double IPAs, 8% double IPAs that I've had as of late? No. Is it one of the more interesting beers I've had as of late? Yes. That's where this one kind of digs itself out and puts it in a fun little category. I like these cuts on beer. I like when breweries do these things. They don't have to be home runs for me to enjoy them. I like the combination of flavor and how it works, and just lets me experience something I've never experienced before. I've had coffee and beer before. No shit, Sherlock. I've had coffee and IPA before. No shit, Sherlock. I've had a coffee and hazy IPA before. Yes, I have. But I've never had it done like this. And I'm not saying I hate this. Maybe my baby palate doesn't, compute this as something that is enjoyable for me. Maybe I grow into this over time. Maybe this becomes a trend. I doubt it will. But what it does is gives me a little bit more kind of a reading, a sensory reading, a noise floor, if you will, or, a noise gate. Or I'm trying to make some kind of audio reference here. So when you try to kill out when you try to take noise out of a recording, whether it be this video or a podcast or whatever, you can actually analyze noise and take a noise snippet of a beer, of a soundtrack, and then you can apply that to the audio file, and it'll do its best to remove whatever that snippet you took is. I'm not saying I'm trying to remove this from my memory. What I'm saying is, it's just giving me an idea what these flavors do when they pair together, and that's a good thing in the end. So it's not like I'm trying not to poop on it. I don't care. It's like not my favorite beer of the world. It is what it is. But I like to discern the difference between what is enjoyable, knee-jerk, visceral enjoyable, and mentally enjoyable. And I find this mentally enjoyable. Value and availability, no idea. Pariah, let me know what's what. They used to put little things in their boxes that I ignored completely. So when I say tell me what's what, I literally ignored it. So it's not their fault. People in San Diego, let me know what's what. Leave you with, if you like what will you like this beer, if you like interesting beer. I mean, if you're looking for a new school hazy fuckduckery in a very fun kind of way, this'll do you. But if you're looking for new school hazy end sentence, it might not be the beer for you. So there you go. Another review in the books. Thank you very much, Pariah, for sending this off. Down there, if you want to talk about it, Massive Beers, if you want to check me out doing the social media stuff. Beer Massif, if you want to check me out doing the whole podcasting thing. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. Hopefully you're enjoying a little bit of coffee. Hazy, West Coast stuff right now. Hopefully see you next time. Cheers.